everybody, it is Mike from Rage Quit Radio. I know that's still really odd for me to be saying these days, but our Ronin in the Know, Mr. Joe, could not be here today. I'm at Big Fandom Greenville. You might say this is RQR almost live. We're doing a throwback to our 2014 days. I'm here with Vincent Baker. Now, you guys might have heard me, if you follow our BenzyCaster page, talking about Big Fandom Greenville and that he was going to be here. He didn't know I was saying that on our page, but
I appreciate it nonetheless.
No worries. Vincent here is the creator of two games being shown off here at Big Fandom Greenville, Spellslingers and Other Worlds, and we'll get a little bit about each of those two games. The one we just played, he just gave me a demo of Spellslingers, which is this frankly really cool quick filler card game. So tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so I'm happy to hear that. Thank you. Spellslingers is a very quick card game. It was made out of me wanting to make the quickest card game that I could possibly make that still had a lot of strategy and was fun to me. Because I know that there's definitely quick card games, but a lot of them, once they're quick and once they're simple, they lose a lot of that strategic depth to it. They lose a lot of the complexity that you can have, or doing nice tactics of using this card and comboing off and stuff. So I wanted something that kind of had the feeling of sitting down playing a more strategic card game such as Magic the Gathering, but amplifying that experience and making it super fast. And one way to make it faster is everything comes in one deck box. Everyone plays with that same deck. There's no counters or dice. It's all made to just play with that deck of cards. So if you have that deck of cards, you can sit down with a group of friends, up to 10 people, and play the game. So that's Spellslingers. And of course you play as wizards, known as Spellslingers, and the objective is to cast your spells to be the last wizard standing. It's Battle Royale, all that good stuff.
Yeah, we played it one-on-one, although you mentioned it's really, you think the sweet spot's between 3 and 6. It'll play, you said 10 players?
Yes. But of course, that gets a little bit more chaotic, so that a 10-player game is of course different than a one versus one.
Well, but that brings me back to my days of Magic the Gathering, because he asked me if I'm familiar with Magic, and I didn't say this inside because I was afraid someone might hear me and I'd lose part of my geek cred. I played Magic back in the days, like Ice Age was the newest set when I started, and then I stopped somewhere around Mirage or Tempest. But the Grand Melee was a big thing back then, where you would sit everybody around a table and play multiplayer like that, and I don't see that much anymore for Magic. But that's what you saying you can play for 10 players, it really reminds me of, and I can see that in the design of the game. I almost feel like we had mentioned very briefly that it's a filler game, to me, kind of like a Star Realms or a Hero Realms, but it feels like a reduction kind of thing. Very focuses the flavor of a game, because one of the things, when you said it struck me as weird. And then I thought about it. I was like, I like this aspect of the game. Every single card in the deck is unique. There's only one copy of every card.
That's true.
What kind of made you go that route with it? I'm curious, because that seems like an interesting design choice.
Yeah, and that's an interesting question. One that I actually haven't heard a lot. Like, I've been asked a lot of questions about Spellslingers, but that actually has not come up yet. So I actually appreciate that for this interview.
Okay.
If I was to be completely honest, is that I had so much fun creating the different cards for the game. That I didn't even really think about it. I was just like, I created, I think it was 80 cards or 85 cards right off the bat. And I was like, boom, and I did it all in one night. And also, doing that from a game design perspective, doing that for a new game that you're working on, it really helps see how much design space is in your game. Sometimes people can make a game where there's not enough design space for a certain type of card, to where you make 20 versions of that card, and then everything starts to feel like it's repeating itself too much. So with Spellslingers, I just was like, what can I make? And then the cards that are actually in the game, almost entirely all of them were made in one night. The only difference is some got tweaked, their spell levels got adjusted by 1 or 2 points and stuff like that. But the game itself was all made basically in one night, and I'm actually surprised at how well it turned out from that.
You telling me it was made in one night makes me surprised how well it turned out too, because that's not something you normally hear.
Well, I'll say this: with my tabletop role-playing game, Other Worlds, it did not turn out the way it's currently is in one night. That's been, it's constantly upgrading and becoming better and better, and it's been out for several years, almost a decade at this point. So that one was not made in a single night. So the card game is a very special case.
And you said there are for Spellslingers, there are 2 expansions for it
that are basically built into the deck. I mean, they're like expansions, because they're extra cards that I could have technically tried to position outside the deck and tried to sell separately, but I wanted people to get the best bang for their buck and just everything be included out of the package.
So it's basically you have the base game and then you have like 2 modules that come with it.
Yeah, it comes with the game, and then inside the rule book that comes with the game, it tells you like how you can incorporate those extra cards with your game.
Oh, fantastic! And that game was what, $15?
It's only $15.
Okay. And then Other Worlds. Now this is the one. I'm friends with Vincent on Facebook. We haven't had too much time face to face. I've been in his store here in Greenville off and on. Pop Cult. It's at Haywood Mall. Go see it. But Other Worlds is the one I see you talk about and show off a little more on Facebook and other places, because I've seen the artwork and I've seen some of the trials and tribulations with the printers and things like this over time.
Oh man, don't get me started on that one. This interview is going to go on for too long.
But give me an idea. What is Other Worlds? What is what's the inspiration, the setting for this RPG?
All right, yeah. So I'll start with the setting. So my dad raised me on Final Fantasy games mostly. I also played Yu-Gi-Oh! And I got into Magic the Gathering from a very young age, and so I was very much a fantasy kid. I actually hated sci-fi when I was a kid. I don't hate sci-fi anymore, so don't attack me if you love sci-fi. Yeah, I love sci-fi now. I love both. But I started off just exclusively loving fantasy, and it was until I was about 13. I played my friend's game, or my cousin, his game Ratchet and Clank. And at first I didn't want to play it, but there was nothing to do, so I just started playing it. I was like, wow, this is actually really fun. And if you don't know Ratchet and Clank, you basically travel different worlds and you have all these crazy different weapons and guns. And I was like, this is really cool. I actually really like this idea, and it kind of has a very fantastical atmosphere. So I was like, okay, so that's cool. So Other Worlds, like the setting, actually was born a lot from like my 13-year-old imagination. So it's a mix between my love of Final Fantasy, Magic the Gathering, and your typical fantasy adventure. And to mix it in with some exploration of exploring different worlds and having some guns to throw in that. So I just had to create a story to justify that setting, which is what Other Worlds is. It's a fantasy adventure with some technology sprinkled throughout. Basically, it's like if you had a bunch of different worlds that were all fantasy, and the tech is really, really low. They don't have guns or anything. But there's these alien ruins and these weird devices and stuff everywhere, but they're not activated, and they don't know what's going on with these things. They're not powered up. They can't figure out how to use them or anything. But then there's this event called the Awakening, where everything starts activating across all the different planets. These gates start opening. They have these devices called Wanderers, and people can now teleport themselves and transport themselves across the world. And now access between travel is way easier. And they start realizing very quickly at this point, after the Awakening, that they're not alone. And at this point, they get very defensive. And, of course, because you're like, wait, we were fighting each other in this world, but there are countless of enemies that can just show up at our doorstep at any moment. So at that point, all the alien tech started becoming active. They could start reverse engineering that. One of the planets is way more evolved than the other planets, and with them being able to go on different pilgrimages and checking out the other different worlds and extracting their resources in exchange for their knowledge and for their services and goods, they're able to rapidly start evolving some of their tech, which is mostly focused on their weapons. And their protection and their armor and stuff like that. So that's why you have a world that's very much, exploring caves, caverns, dungeons, the mountains and things like that, because these worlds have not really been traversed. They haven't, had people come in and make gigantic cities and stuff like that. And you can go to a world with like a giant 3-headed dragon or, whatever it may be. But the weapons is the focus here, because, people got to protect themselves, and they also got to attack other people, because, what's a tabletop RPG without conflict? So that's where the premise of that comes from. So everyone, you basically play the role of an otherworlder, which is basically an adventurer that goes to different worlds, doing cool things, basically being like a bounty hunter, adventurer.
Okay. And from a crunch standpoint, looking at the rule set, what would it be like if you were describing this to me? Obviously, which he is for the first time.
Yeah.
What would you tell me? How would you describe Other Worlds, like the actual mechanics of it?
Yeah, so basically I wanted to take everything that I did not like about other tabletop role-playing games and get rid of that stuff. Okay. Anything that I thought was confusing or my friends thought was confusing, I really came at it from a new player perspective, because I had played some tabletop role-playing games as a kid, but I didn't quite understand them. Like I was one of those players that didn't get the rules but just kind of went along with everything, because I was a kid, I didn't really understand. And so I wanted to take all the things that really confused me as a kid and get rid of it. Such as having like a modifier. So like if your strength is 18, but it's only a modifier of like +4, that was confusing to me because I was like, shouldn't I have 18? Why does it have to convert? By these numbers and stuff. So in other worlds, it doesn't convert. It's all a D6 system. You only have to use 6-sided dice.
Okay.
So you don't have to worry about trying to collect all your dice, because I hated seeing like if someone got into combat and they had to use a different attack, if they had to search for a certain amount of different dice, and they're like, hey, do you have that dice, and here's this bag with this. I thought that took away from the story. So basically one of the highlights of Otherworlds is not only is it a super streamlined, easy to use system that only uses a 6-sided dice, the dice explode, combat is very lethal, it's very quick and fast. We actually had some veteran players of RPGs that's been playing for 20 plus years, and they played last night, and I asked them what was their favorite feature, and they said, man, this combat is so quick. They loved how quick the combat was. I told them one of my favorite big combats I had in Otherworlds was we had okay, there's basically a gigantic army of things going on. There's like 80 pieces on the board. There's some pirates coming in, and a kraken was coming out attacking them. There's like these gladiators on the beachfront because there's a lot of crazy stuff happening. There's a giant dinosaur coming out the other way, and it was like an all-out melee. Like everyone's fighting each other, and the players were caught in the middle of all this. And a series of events led up to this. This was kind of like a finale of this chapter. And there's like 80 pieces on the board, and that conflict only took 3.5 hours. And that was not using any shortcut rules for like squads or anything like that for doing the mobs or anything. That was 80 individual like stat-based characters and everything, just because everything is so streamlined.
Wow. Okay. I've run some fairly big combats before, but in different RPG systems, and you have to this squad of 10 people, and you have to break it down. That's not bad for 80 individual unique characters and only lasts about 3.5 hours. That's not bad at all.
Yeah, I'm very proud of that.
So, if folks wanted to learn more about Spellslingers or Otherworlds, where do they need to go?
Yeah, so go to my website, vindicatedentertainment.com. It has information about both. If you want to get more information on Otherworlds, you can go to otherworldsrpg.com. You can also check out the Facebook page, which is the Otherworlds Universe. You can check out Twitter, Otherworlds RPG, and if there's anything else there, I'll just send him the links, and I'm sure you can put it down in the
notes below.
In the notes.
And same thing for Spellslingers, they would find that at Vindicated Entertainment?
Both games are on Vindicated Entertainment.
And if they wanted to purchase said games, because I know they were, one or both were on Kickstarter at one point.
Yeah, so you can purchase that stuff from Vindicated Entertainment. If you go to the shop, you'll see the Spellslingers cards. And if you go to Drive-Thru RPG, which is linked from the store, or you can go directly through Drive-Thru RPG, we have our Otherworlds products there.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So that's it. Thank you so very much. Guys, Big Fan of Greenville has been a whole lot of fun. I'm going to head back in here and check out some more stuff. Thank you guys for joining us. Maybe at some point we'll drag Vincent down for Rage Quit Radio and he can actually show us this highly lethal RPG combat, quick and dirty, up close. But you guys have a lot of fun. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mike, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.